everybody, it's Jenn from McCreath. April 15th, 2014. Sorry about the throat. I've got a bad sore throat. I look horrible because I feel awful. I'm turning the camera on. This is part 2 of my videos today, talking a little bit about, actually this is an interview, I guess we'll say. Someone from the Massachusetts Transgender Political Coalition got in touch looking at fair access to competition in sports, looking at the Boston Marathon. And the concept of transgender athletes has been raised a lot in the media lately, and I went through this whole ordeal 5 years ago, so I guess it's fitting for me to comment. My first video talked a little bit about the Stockholm Consensus, a guideline created by the International Olympic Committee to determine who and how could participate in the Olympics, who's got some sort of trans history. Ultimately, you want to make sure that your sporting events are accessible and fair and do not discriminate against anyone. At the same time, ensures fairness to all participants and that nobody has a competitive advantage. Talked a little bit about hormones in that video and the importance of measuring that out. Also talked about some of the decisions made that were more clerical and administrative, and the fact that whether or not you had legal documents obviously doesn't affect your ability to participate. So let's go back to me. Before you can go to the Olympics, you got to take several steps, and it all starts at the very beginning, getting into sports. Are there roadblocks for trans athletes to participate in sport? I say absolutely yes. General discrimination, homophobia, transphobia, it exists in this world. It is very sad. How does one get into sports, get accepted into the sports culture and environment? There's a lot of gay, lesbian athletes that have talked about that. For me, being in an individual sport as a marathon runner, you don't need teammates. You just get out there and run on your own. So ultimately, it was me versus the race directors, and I took up the sport. It was before I'd started any of the transition. Within 18 months of running, I was deemed at the top 10 percentile in the world of male marathon runners. Only the top 10% are capable of qualifying for the Boston Marathon, which I actually came within a hair. I ran a Boston Marathon qualifying time plus 60 seconds and missed the cutoff by 1 minute. I had already started the process of transitioning to female. But before we get to Boston, I want to talk about what's it like when you go through this change, and you're now asking people to recognize you as a woman, yet you still have that male advantage of testosterone in your body. I went to my local sporting sanctioning body and said, look, it's an indignity to continue to refer to me as a man or a male. At the same time, I haven't feminized yet. I respect and recognize that there's a 2-year waiting period is the guideline, I believe, with the Stockholm Consensus before one can be suitably demasculinized and feminized through hormones so that they do not have a competitive advantage. So we made an agreement, myself, the Newfoundland Labrador Athletic Association, that I would run as myself, Jennifer McCreath, without a sex category. My results, I would run in the race. I would not be competing against males or females. I would get a finishing time, and it would simply say Jennifer McCreath finishing time with no sex listed in the results. Once I had completed, ironically enough, there were no other standards to map against. How do we know when it's fair for you to compete, Jennifer? Well, show me a policy that somebody has. Well, the International Olympic Committee is the top of the food chain, and so I brought it to them. This goes back to 2008. Sadly and ironically, Athletics Canada had not adopted any policies of their own, and I guess to me that's the biggest part of this story. Is I reached out to Athletics Canada and said, look, Stockholm Consensus, they came up with this policy. It's good in some ways, but it's not fair in others. I'd like to work with you guys to come up with something better, and they didn't even respond. Athletics Canada, as far as I'm concerned, don't give a damn about trans people. They'd rather sweep us under the rug and not have us participate in sports. And if I ever do make it to Olympic level, to the point where I'm ready to compete in the Olympics, I'll probably give the middle finger to Team Canada and go compete for another country. That's how upset I am. Biggest barrier for trans people to participate in elite level sports, in my opinion, is Athletics Canada. Shame on you. You gotta do a better job. Anyway, that's my rant on Athletics Canada. So back to the Newfoundland Labrador Athletics Association. These folks were great. I showed them this document that the Olympic Committee came up with, and they said, Jennifer, okay, that's great. If when you're completed your transition and can demonstrate that you've mapped up against the International Olympic Committee standards, we'll let you run as a female. And in my case, I did go through all 3: gonadectomy, removal of testosterone producers, full sex reassignment surgery giving me female parts, legal recognition of those female parts by government officials, and estrogen treatment for 2 years, demonstrating that I have feminine hormone ranges. And at that point, I was accepted as a female, running events as a female, no questions asked, no asterisks. And that was all I ever asked for. And I think ultimately in the end, it worked out fine. There was never any advantage or disadvantage. Ultimately, there was a disadvantage in my opinion, because as I talked about earlier about the bone density, I went from being a good male marathon runner to a poor female marathon runner. I went from placing in my age group, top 3, to not placing at all, finishing dead last, in fact, in my last marathon. And ultimately, nothing but good things to say about Newfoundland Labrador Athletic Association. I guess this video, we'll call it barriers to entry into sports, and there's still some challenges and stigma. Running is a very individual sport, but there's a culture that involves group activities, and I won't blame anyone else. I'm a bit of a loner, but I've definitely, I don't feel that running organizations anywhere have kind of twisted my arm to be part of the club. They're quite happy to keep me at arm's length, and that's kind of sad as well. It's like people don't want to be associated with me because of this. I don't think they have individual issues with me. I think it's just fear of the culture. Well, what will people think of us if we cozy up to a trans person? And it's kind of sad, because trans people are people, and we just want to fit in. And anyways, I thought I was going to talk more about the Boston experience, but I'm going to save that for the 3rd video, which I will record next. Thanks for watching this one.